Of course, here down under, we have to endure a very long off-season. There are many months between the end of the A-League season and the start of the season. So, while we have a long time to go before the 2023-24 campaign kicks off, let's do an early ladder prediction. There's going to be plenty of hot takes in this ladder prediction, and I'm sure it will change when it gets closer to the season. Starting off in last place, though, I have Newcastle Jets. I think the Jets will finish bottom this year. I think with Arthur Papas over the last few years, he has now departed the club. They have to go in a new direction after it didn't quite work out with Papas. And I'm really concerned for Newcastle Jets. Looking at their squad, it's a bit worrying overall. You know, they recently lost Beckham Mikkeldadsey, their star striker over the last couple of years. And looking at their team overall, there aren't quite many players who look like they could really have that star power to shine there at Newcastle. There are good young players still, the Jets. They've got, Trent Bahagia, Mark Natsa. They've signed Lockie Bayless from the Central Coast Mariners Academy. Daniel Steins re-signing for the new season as well. And it's going to be up to those young players to really step up and, potentially have a breakout season. Newcastle, though, I see them struggling this year. In 11th place, I've got Brisbane Roar. Again, another player roster that just doesn't excite me very much. The major problem for the Queensland club has been up top. They've failed to have a consistent goal scorer. You remember back to last season, they signed Charlie Austin, a lot of excitement around that one, and he left only after a couple of games. It was a disaster for Brisbane Roar and Charlie Austin. It just didn't work out. Juan Lascano, Stefan Skepovic, these international strikers that they bring in just haven't really worked out. They haven't really settled in, and that's what they really need. They need someone threatening up top who's going to be reliable in front of goal. Again, it's not a terrible squad. There are promising players here and there in that Brisbane Roar squad, but they need more if they're going to make a push into the top 6. I see them struggling once again unless they make some promising signings this transfer window. In 10th place, I've got MacArthur FC, jumping up a couple spots from last year. For me, when you look at the players there at the Bulls, there's a bit more to work with for me compared to Brisbane Roar and Newcastle Jets. Miles Dejowski coming in, a rookie coach, his first year as a professional coach in the A-League. It's going to be interesting to see how he develops this squad. But we've seen some signings already, the likes of Christian Popovic, Rafael Borges Rodriguez. These are young players who have a lot of potential, and that could potentially be the way forward for MacArthur FC. If Ulysses Devere can bounce back from injury and have another big season, MacArthur FC could be pushing for the top 6, but it's going to take, another good striker coming in, potentially some more midfielders as well, just to fill out that team a little bit. 10th for MacArthur. 9th place, I've got Perth Glory, and I wanted to put them higher. I was really impressed with them last season, and I thought they could have even finished even higher. They were close to jumping into that top 6. But for me, the big factor is the departure of Ruben Zadkovic. And as of the recording of this video, Glory still haven't appointed anyone yet. And it's disappointing because they, as I mentioned, they were a team that were on the rise. Again, another youthful team with plenty of exciting players. And I thought under Zadkovic that they would have pushed into the top 6 this season. But for me, I think they will struggle yet again. A decent list of departures again this year. They've brought in Ollie Sale, the goalkeeper. That's a good signing, but still plenty of work needs to be done in this transfer window for the WA club. In 8th place, we should be definitely seeing some improvement from Melbourne Victory, simply because they are the biggest club in Australian football, and they have to improve. We've seen it over the last few years. Melbourne Victory, they've just been yo-yoing, dropping down and then jumping right back up. You remember season before last, they were one game away from the grand final, and then last year they finished almost at rock bottom. Melbourne Victory have to bounce back. Really curious to see what plays they bring in. They haven't made too much movement early in this transfer window. It's going to be all about signing key players who are going to bring value to the squad and getting rid of the players who weren't providing too much value to that team last year. If they do sign some quality first team players, they could easily jump into the top 6 for me. For now, there isn't enough to suggest that they're going to be there. 8th place. In 7th, I'm expecting another mid-table finish for Wellington Phoenix, but I've got them just dropping out. They always seem to prove me wrong, Wellington Phoenix. They always have, some key departures, and they have had some more this transfer window already, but they always, defy the odds and seem to finish in the top 6 or at least close to it. It's a new era though for Phoenix. Ufuk Taylor has departed the club. Italiano coming in as head coach, but he was the assistant there for the last few years as well, which is worth remembering. But he will be looking to implement a fresh and exciting playing style there at the New Zealand club. They've lost some key players. They've lost Steven Ugarkovic. There's even rumours that that Oscar Zawada could be heading overseas as well. Wellington, it's always an interesting task for them, recruiting the right players, bringing those players over to New Zealand. But considering the spirit and the heart that Wellington always play with, they will be there, they will be competing, but for me, just slipping out in 7th place. And replacing Phoenix in the top 6, I've got Western United. I think they're going to have a decent season, Western. I was intrigued when halfway through last season, they signed John Aloisi, for the next couple seasons. And it was an interesting move for me because Western was struggling, a bit last year after coming off that championship winning season. But they decided to stick with John Aloisi, deciding that he was the right man to lead that club forward. They've made some impressive signings already this transfer window with the likes of Angus Thurgate. They've even been rumoured with Daniel Pena. There's players in that squad already who are very, very exciting with the likes of, Stephen Lustica, Lockie Wales as well, Noah Botic. He had almost a breakout season last year as well. There are good players at the green and black, and you feel if they just get gelling again, they will get more wins on the board and could easily push into the top 6. In 5th place, and this team's always a tricky one to predict these days, Sydney FC. I see them finishing there once again. Looking at their team, they do need to do a bit of recruitment, especially defensively, with Alex Wilkinson, Donachie departing as well. They still need to sign a handful of players in a number of positions across the pitch, but they do still have a strong team. There are promising players there. Replacing Lafondra up top will be interesting as well. But for me, they're just too big of a club to slip down. I think they will have another solid season. Sydney FC, look, if they do slip out of that top 6, you surely have to think that this is the last year in charge for Steve Corica. There's been so much speculation around his job. This will be a really, really important campaign for Steve Corica and the Sky Blues. In 4th place, and this is maybe a bit of a hot take, I've got Melbourne City dropping down, which is a big call. Don't get me wrong, finishing 4th is still a great finish, you're still in that top 4 playing finals football. But Melbourne City, I think that successful era of them just finishing on top year after year is going to end, and it's off the back of some of the key departures that they've had, Geordie Boss, Aidan O'Neill, Marco Tilio, these promising players departing the club, Van der Ven, Thomas Lamperisha, all these guys are leaving the club, and they were key to that premiership winning season last time around. Some of the signings that they have brought in are intriguing. Togo Arslan, Steven Ugarkovic, Terry Antonis into the squad as well. A couple key positions maybe out wide and in defence that they have to sign in still as well. I see them dropping down. I think just the other teams in that top 4 are going to be really, really competitive yet again, and it's going to be a little bit more even. We won't see City, 10, 12 points clear at the top like we did last season. I think it's going to be much more balance in that premiership race this year. In 3rd place, I've got Adelaide United once again. They always seem to finish in a top 6 position, and there's no reason to think that they won't this year. Not too many departures. One day is sort of the major departure that they've had so far, but overall, it will be a strong squad heading into next season. Under Calvert, there's nothing to suggest that the Reds will slip down for this year. 2nd place, Western Sydney Wanderers I've got, and for me, the Wanderers are just a team that really, really surprised me and excited me last year. They finally got it right. Marco Rodan, his first full year in charge, put together a fantastic team. Now, they do have plenty of departures. We do have to mention that, the likes of Romain Amalfitano, Kusini Yengi, Amor Layuni, Adama Traore, all these guys, departing the squad. There are some key positions, once again, like many clubs, that they have to still recruit in. But I think Marco Rodan is a good coach, and there are good players still at the club, with the likes of Callum Neuenhoff, Brandon Borrello. It's a strong team, and it's a team that should be strong defensively once again. Lawrence Thomas, fantastic goalkeeper at the back there as well. Western Sydney Wanderers will be pushing for the premiership, in my opinion. They just need to be scoring more goals this season, and they could easily finish first. But finishing in top spot, I've got Central Coast Mariners, my team, and I think Mariners are in a real sweet spot now, where Nick Montgomery, he's been in charge of the team for a couple of years now, and coming off that championship winning victory, I think Mariners will be strong once again. Some key players departing, we do have to acknowledge that, with the likes of Nectar Triantis, Samuel Silvera looking like he's heading overseas as well, Jason Cummings departing for India. But it's the same story for the last few years for the Central Coast Mariners. Despite some key player departures, Nick Montgomery and his coaching staff, the scouting team there at Mariners, always seem to do a fantastic job of replacing these players. They've done it for the last few years in a row, and that's why I think Mariners will have a successful season again. You think back to last year, Mariners lost the likes of Mark Birighitti, Kai Rolls, Michael Orenya, Cy Goddard, Lewis Miller departing as well, yet they were able to replace these guys and win the championship. As long as Nick Montgomery is in charge of the Central Coast Mariners, they will be finishing in at least a top 6 position. But for me, I think Mariners, with the likes of Nisbet, Ballard running things in midfield as well, Jacob Farrell, Brian Kaltak at the back. I think Danny Vukovic is still a fantastic goalkeeper, and the likes of Tullio and Maresh combining up top is really, really exciting. That's a team that could finish first this year. So there is a look at my early ladder prediction. I guarantee you that this will change closer to the season. Of course, we will be doing my final A-League ladder prediction closer to the start of the A-League season, which is expected to be in October of this year. But drop your early ladder prediction down in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys are making of the teams, still with a few months out to go till the start of the A-League 2023-24 season. Thanks so much for catching the video. My name's Lockie. This is Coastwood Football. Catch you guys in the next one.